All right, let's go ahead and discuss solving systems of equations by elimination. And eliminating means that when you add these two equations together, one of the variables is going to cancel itself out. So for example here, we have negative 4x and positive 4x. Since they are opposite each other, they will cancel each other out because any number plus its opposite always equals 0. We call that additive inverse. So we can add these two equations together, and let's see what happens. Negative 4x and positive 4x cancel each other out. Negative 2y plus 8y, that equals 6y. And negative 12 minus 24 equals negative 36. And now all we can see, we have a very simple equation here now, 6y equals negative 36. And all we need to do now is divide both sides by 6. And we get y equals negative 6. Now that we know y equals negative 6, all we need to do is take that and substitute it into any one of the two original equations. So I'm going to take the first equation and substitute it there. So I have here 4x plus 8 times the value of y equals negative 24. And the value of y is negative 6. So we have 4x, and then 8 times negative 6 is negative 48 equals negative 24. We have to add 48 to both sides. These cancel each other out, and now we have 4x equals positive 24. And then finally, just divide both sides by 4. And we get x equals 6. And then so our answer is the ordered pair of 6 comma negative 6. Remember that an ordered pair is always x comma y. It doesn't matter which variable you solve for first. It's always x comma y. That's why it's 6 comma negative 6. Okay, now let's take a look at this example. 7x plus 2y equals 24. And 8x plus 2y equals 30. Now we're looking for one of these variables to be opposite the other. And we don't have that exactly. If we look at the y's, both of them are positive 2y. And if one of them were just negative 2y, then we would be able to eliminate. They'd cancel each other out. So what do? Well, very simply, we're going to change one of these equations so that we have a negative 2y. And we could do that very simply by multiplying the equation by negative 1. So that's what I'm going to do to the first equation. I'm just going to multiply it by negative 1. Remember, when you multiply something by negative 1, you just change all the signs. So here, negative 1 times 7x is negative 7x. Negative 1 times positive 2y is now negative 2y. And negative 1 times 24 is now negative 24. So we can see here that now we've achieved our goal, which is to have a positive 2y and a negative 2y. Now we can add these two equations together. Sorry about that, I made a mistake. Now we can add these two equations together and solve for x. So 2y minus 2y, these cancel each other out. 8x minus 7x is x. And 30 minus 24 is 6. And look at that. This was really easy. We didn't need to divide or anything. We just know now that x is 6. Now all we need to do is take that value of 6 and substitute it for x into any one of these three equations, whichever one we want. It doesn't matter. So I'm just going to go ahead and pick the second one because it's all positive. It doesn't matter, first or second one. I'm just going to go ahead and pick the second one. I already said that. So we have 8 times the value of x plus 2y equals 30. And the value of x is 6. So 8 times 6 is 48 plus 2y equals 30. Now we need to subtract 48 from both sides. Okay, I should have done that in a different color, but I'll do that now. And these cancel out, and now I have 2y equals, and 30 minus 48 is negative 18. Then finally, I just have to divide both sides by 2. And I get y, do that again, and I get y equals negative 2. Negative 2? Negative 9. I wrote negative 9 and I said negative 2, but you can see it here on the screen. And so our answer is the ordered pair of 6, comma, negative 9. Okay, if we look at this third example, what we can see here is that sometimes it takes a little bit more than just multiplying by negative 1 in order to get a situation where you could eliminate a variable. If we look here at the y's, we have a positive 2y and we have a negative 1y. So they're opposite each other, but they don't have the same coefficient. If only this second equation had a negative 2y, then we'd be in business. But that's very easy to solve because all we have to do is multiply this second equation by 2. And that will give us what we need. So 2 times 4x is 8x. 2 times negative y is negative 2y. And 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. So now I'm just going to bring the original equation, the top equation, down so we can see them right next to each other. So we have here negative 3x plus 2y equals negative 3. And now when we look at our y's, we have them. They are opposite, negative 2y and positive 2y. So now they will cancel each other out when we add these together. So they cancel each other out. And we have here 8x minus 3x is 5x. And negative 2 minus 3 is negative 5. Very simple here. All we got to do is divide both sides by 5. And we see that negative 5 divided by positive 5 is negative 1. And all we need to do now with that value of negative 1 is once again take it. We can substitute it into any one of these equations on the top. Okay? So I'm just going to go ahead and take the very first equation, which is negative 3 times the value of x plus 2y equals negative 3. And the value of x is negative 1. So now let's work that out. Negative 3 times negative 1, that's positive 3, plus 2y equals negative 3. Subtract 3 from both sides. We get 2y equals negative 6. Then we divide both sides by 2, and we get y equals negative 3. And there is our y value, so our ordered pair is negative 1, comma, negative 3. Okay, so here in our final example, we see that sometimes in order to be able to eliminate, we actually need to multiply both equations in order to change them. So we can see here in our x's we have a 3x and a 5x. They're not opposite. And in the y's we have a negative 2y and a negative 5y. They are not opposite. So we kind of need to go back to the world of least common denominators. Remember, because in order to add or subtract fractions, you need to have common denominators. So you have to think about the least common multiple. Well, that's what we have to think about here. Once again, if we look at the x's, we have a 3 and a 5. So what's the least common multiple for 3 and 5? That's 15, okay? And then we can look at the y's, and the y's are a 2 and a 5, and the least common multiple for 2 and 5 is 10. And you could do whichever you want. All you need to do is pick one and solve for it. So since 10 is a smaller number, I'm going to go ahead and change the y's so that one of them will be a positive 10 and the other one will be a negative 10. Okay? All right, so I've backtracked too much. So in order to change a negative 2y into a positive 10y, I'm going to have to multiply this equation by negative 5. Remember, because negative times negative is positive. And then I want the y in the second equation to stay negative. So in order to change a negative 5 into a negative 10, I just have to multiply by positive 2. Okay? So let's take a look at how this works. Negative 5 times positive 3x is negative 15x. And negative 5 times negative 2y is positive 10y. And negative 5 times positive 2 is negative 10. And on the second equation, 2 times 5x is 10x. 2 times negative 5y is negative 10y. And 2 times 10 is 20. Now, I can combine these two equations together. The y's will cancel each other out. Positive 10y and negative 10y, they cancel each other out. And so now I have here negative 15x plus 10x is negative 5x. And negative 10 plus 20 is positive 10. And finally here, just go ahead and divide both sides by negative 5. And positive 10 divided by negative 5 is negative 2. Once again, now that I know that x equals negative 2, I could take that and I could substitute it in here for now any one of these 4 equations. Okay? Remember, the last 2 equations are the same. They are equivalent to the first 2 equations. All they are is new versions because we multiplied them. So it's going to be a lot easier to pick one of the first ones. I'm going to go ahead and pick the very first equation. So we have here 3 times the value of x minus 2y equals 2. And the value of x is negative 2. So let's work this out. 3 times negative 2, that's negative 6 minus 2y equals 2. So now I have to add 6 to both sides. And these cancel out, and I get negative 2y equals 8. And then finally, sorry about that, that was my phone ringing, but I'm not going to stop now. Finally, all I need to do is divide both sides by negative 2. And I get the value y equals negative 4. So my answer is the ordered pair negative 2, comma, negative 4. All right, I hope that this video helps you to understand solving systems of equations by elimination.